The most of us, we think that science fiction films simply describe imaginary technologies and characters, but if in fact it described extinct civilizations and extinct and real technologies, having existed in the recent past but an occult history that only certain insiders can know, like certain high grades of Freemasons? What if directors like George Lucas and Walt Disney and other high-level Masonic Lodge insiders had access to knowledge forbidden to ordinary mortals? If they knew for the history of Great Tartary, a global or galactic civilization erased from history and maps, this true history of humanity would be hidden by the current satanist and parasitic elites, the controllers? In a subliminal way, film scriptwriters, science fiction writers and comic book creators try to disclose, to us, the hidden truth in history and highly advanced technology, the true glorious past of humanity, in a coded way to escape the censorship of the elites or some artists are connected with some entities that inspire their imagination. For example, the designer Enki Bilal has fun creating a futuristic and fabulous architecture, but in reality which resembles the buildings of ancient India or Great Tartary. So perhaps everything is linked: the theory of the mud flood, the Vimana, these flying machines of India, the ANNUNAKI, Great Tartary, the moon, the planet Mars, the giants or titans. In fact, the science fiction films and the books and comics describe our past and not our future. Does the Flash Gordon film actually describe the Anunnaki, winged men, or fallen angels who descended to Earth? King Ming of the planet Mongo would actually be a Chinese or Mongol emperor who really existed. The Ming dynasty is real according to official historians. But Mongo would be Mongolia, or maybe in reality Great Tartary, a world empire, the old world order that some may confuse with the Atlantis? Similarly, the first flying vessels were the hot air balloons were invented in China or in Mongolia, as evidenced by the Chinese lanterns. Also, our story is false. It was rewritten by the winners to claim that the Montgolfiers are an invention of the Montgolfier brothers. It is a little hard to believe which family in France bears the name of Montgolfier. In any case, the Chinese lanterns, often confused with UFOs, are indeed Chinese or Mongolian and not French. Great Tartary was a world empire with a Muslim majority but including Christians, Buddhists, and Jews and other minorities, a tolerant and very technologically advanced empire, an empire which may have built the pyramids and why not colonized the space, an empire that already had computers and robots and electricity and free and clean energies that would be hidden away by the current elites called the parasites or the satanists. The description of the Mongols as a barbaric, cruel, and even cannibalistic people is of course probably misleading, but how could such a powerful civilization have disappeared so quickly? What weapons have the current elites used? Atomic bombs, weather weapons like HARP or poison gas or poisons. If giants existed a short time ago according to the mud flood theory, how were they exterminated? Nevertheless, in the film and the series or the cartoons of Flash Gordon, the blonde would be like an angel and the Emperor Ming would be dressed in red like the devil and would be a cruel dictator or megalomaniac. But the reality is probably not that simple. Maybe the blonde was a bad Nazi, for example, and Emperor Ming only wanted to defend his civilization and prevent Flash Gordon from seizing weapons of mass destruction. Emperor Ming is also reminiscent of Mr. Spock, who came from the planet Vulcan, so Satan, who would come from hell, in the Star Trek series. Not only is Emperor Ming dressed in red, but we can distinguish a kind of pentagram, a form used by Satanists for sacrifices in order to open doors between our world and world of spirits or demons. Long before Zecharia Sitchin, the film Flash Gordon in its first version and in black and white already described winged men who look like Anunnaki. Later, George Lucas failed to buy out the rights to Flash Gordon, so he created a Star Wars saga where he described a war of the Satanist empire dominated by clones and robots against small planets of defenseless civilians. A little can be the parasite elites against Great Tartary. The Jedi would be a jihadist who would resist the imperialism of the Satanists against Great Tartary. Princess Amidala resembles Mongolian Princess Torjine Khatun or Genapil, who was deposed from her throne and sentenced to death while pregnant by Communist Russia but was manipulated by the British Crown, the Rothschilds, and the United States of America, and especially the Fed. Besides, don't the clowns imitate this Mongolian upper middle class or the Asian artists who wore makeup or masks? Walt Disney was also undoubtedly inspired by the history of Great Tartary and the Mongol princes and Mongol kings, their castles, and their clothes. But Disney also describes jealous, cruel, or wicked women or witches as Mongolian women. They are often dressed as Mongolian princesses or women of the Mongolian or Chinese upper class. So Walt Disney, a high-degree Freemason who collaborated with NASA, also demonizes the Chinese and Mongolians who convey misleading stereotypes that can incite racism and contempt for the civilization of Great Tartary. So is this racist propaganda or just a coincidence? Often in the West the devil is represented with horns, which is probably untrue. So the Gauls, the Vikings, are also demonized and described as being cruel, bloodthirsty and barbaric just like the Mongols. But, and if the church was lying, if the historians were lying, and if Hollywood and its propaganda machine were lying, just like Walt Disney, the movie industry, who created the first Flash Gordon film where the natives would be demonized and the settlers would be angels and beings of light? According to the Quran, a man, a kind of giant or superhero, the man with two horns, would have built a wall or a dam to lock up the barbarian peoples Gog and Magog underground. The Gog and Magog, a people, can be small men and giants at night, destroy crops, stole fruit from trees and stole milk from cows, condemning certain remote peoples to misery, and the man with two horns would have melted copper and iron, then might have blocked the entrance to another world where these dangerous peoples live for the rest of humanity. So representing Satan with two horns, is this not a way of demonizing the man with two horns who on the contrary saved humanity? Finally, Darth Vader also looks like a Japanese samurai with armor and a helmet that could have had horns. The Star Trek series is also probably inspired by Flash Gordon, but instead of King Ming from the planet Mongo, Mr. Spock is from the planet Vulcan, so he embodies Satan, but a nice Satan and on the side of humans. Captain Kirk, blonde, looks like Flash Gordon. From a historical point of view, there is certainly also a link between Egypt and Mongolia. Indeed, the Mongolian princesses are very similar to the Egyptian princesses. Star Trek would have influenced our time by describing in advance the cell phone and many other inventions. But did Great Tartary already have technologies like free energy, electricity, computers, and teleportation, space station and satellites?